So I'll maybe try to answer in a couple ways. One of my acronyms internally is FATE, forget about the environment. So there is always something to worry about from a macro standpoint: China tensions, pandemic, interest rates, foreign exchange, et cetera. And I know it sounds trite, but we really try to do our best to ignore all that, to focus just on the underlying themes within technology and then the best companies. The rest will sort it out. We can't predict. And that's, that is our recipe. Of course, it always is better to have the market go up every day forever. But it's been it has been a huge tailwind over a long period of time, and fundamentally driven by technology, which, in a down market day doesn't mean the outlook for technology has really changed.
Right. I like that fate. I'm going to remember it. Does it mean you have to have a minimum time horizon of 5 years, 10 years, something like that?
Well, I think in technology it's interesting, particularly being at this conference, you hopefully have to be right and not focus so much on day to day. But if you are 5 years too early on a given segment, you're probably not going to make a lot of money. So it's more, I think the job of trying to identify the big winners of the future is a very hard one. I think your job is even harder, which is try to make sense of hourly, daily, weekly, monthly market fluctuations.
That's why we talk to you, right? We don't have to come up with the answers. It's a big direct-to-consumer day with Warby Parker going public, and you're on the board of Peloton, which is a huge direct-to-consumer name. I wonder how you frame the challenge for these companies, particularly when, Apple's coming after Peloton hard on the software side and with the Apple Watch. What is the most important asset for a company like that in this kind of environment?
So generally on the consumer side, you've seen businesses that are able to provide very unique convenience, value, or selection. And so Netflix, Peloton, et cetera, and do so in a way that really engages consumers. So that's something we look at a lot. And, in the case of Peloton, there was a long litany of unsuccessful home fitness companies before them. But, on their last earnings call, they talked about almost 20 workouts per subscriber per month. So that's a very engaged consumer. So as we look at new businesses, that's what we're looking for. Are they providing something that's magical, that's really engaging the consumer? And when they do so, they can, grow substantially over time. I will also note from a market fluctuation standpoint, I think Sunday was the 2-year anniversary of the Peloton IPO, and it traded down. So way back in history, the Netflix IPO traded down. So near term doesn't always mean long term.
So speaking of Netflix, a lot of conversation here about streaming video. We heard from Ted Sarandos. We'll hear from Jason Kyler on our air in just a little bit. But this question of where does Netflix need to be investing now? What is going to help them compete, and how important are games? You've also invested in game companies. So tell us what you see as Netflix's key growth feature.
Well, I think the common thread between both entertainment, in Netflix's case, and games is that incredible engagement. So hours watched per day for the average Netflix customer, and in video games, it can be several hours. I would say, I know there's lots of focus on this show and elsewhere about the streaming wars. And this answer might be a little disappointing, but it's consistent with what Ted and Reed argue, which is the competition is not for Netflix is not around other streaming services. And to some extent, obviously, they're replacing linear alternatives. So there's a big viewing shift. But the challenge and the opportunity is just continue to develop incredibly engaging shows, movies, et cetera. And, Ted shared at the conference, obviously, some of the viewing of the monstrous titles. But I would also say the beauty of the internet is you can provide kind of what used to be thought of as a niche show or a niche documentary, which used to be seen in a theater by, 82 people. And the power is you can have that viewed by several 100,000 people via the internet. And that just, as a creator, has to be a wonderful thing. So Netflix has to produce incredibly great shows and continue to be the place to go for creators who want their wares shown by the largest audience in the world.